Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Ben Greiner, and this is our Forget Computers and Robot Cloud monthly meeting for February. Briefly, I want to review last month. If you want to look at last month's recording, you can go to our website, forgetcomputers.com. You can scroll down to events, where you'll get a calendar of events. Here's today's meeting, and we'll go back to January, where we have last month's meeting on documentation posted here with the recording. And a tip that I'll share, because I use this a lot, is you can use the little gear icon and you can set the speed to, excuse me, to double speed, maybe. I often listen to 1.5, gets it done faster. I don't talk very quickly, so you can speed things up. Sounds pretty normal. Give it a try. After today, we'll be posting this month's meeting here in the February area, which currently just has how to join. So last month, we talked about documentation and the importance of knowing what you have so you can plan for and be aware of change. Documentation is an important foundation of managing change. And speaking of documentation, I want to go back a minute to our knowledge base and just share a few things. Our knowledge base, which is support.forgetcomputers.com, and you can do a search across Forget Computers and Robot Cloud, or you can go right into Forget Computers and browse. And we have a few documents that are recently posted, some of them new, some of them old. But what to do if your email is hacked. I mentioned this last month. That's a good one to review. Ransomware. Should you be worried, and what protective steps should you take? That's a new one that we posted. And finally, 6 steps to better Mac and iOS security. We've had that up for a while. I think it's a few years old now, but we do continually update it, and it's a great place to start if you're trying to gain more information on security, which is our topic for today. So documentation last month, security this month. Let's get back into it. Security 101. I'm calling this Security 101 because there's so much to cover. I don't want to overwhelm everyone in 30 minutes or less, and it's probably not possible to cover so many security topics in so little time. Starting with documentation, I mentioned how important it is. There's a critical piece of security that's really just as important. And we've put together this PDF, 12 ways to protect your business from ransomware. And ransomware is clearly on the rise. We're seeing this across multiple organizations, and it is critical that you start taking a serious look at this. Even if you have not yet suffered a breach, great, but you got to keep on top of it to remain safe. So we talked about how you need documentation to know what to make better, how to make it better, how to control change. And the same goes with security. You really need to start with a security assessment. We've partnered with someone here in Chicago, Chad Calise, with a company called Whimsical, who Chad is focused on security 24/7. And together we built a program that is really beneficial to small businesses who can't afford to have a full-time security staff like the large enterprise businesses that we work with. And in the enterprise, we're also trying to help them take more automated security steps using our Robot Cloud software. But it's always a team effort. You have to work together. So I would encourage everyone to consider starting with a security assessment. If you don't know what to secure, then where do you start? I mean, you can't just make this up as you drift along through life, right? Everyone needs a plan, and everyone needs to know where the risks are in their business so they can focus on reducing those risks. And that's where the security assessment comes in. Chad and our team will work together to figure out where your risks are, working with you because you know your business better than anyone. And we're going to show you where we think the holes are. You're going to tell us where that makes sense for your business, and then we're going to work towards reducing that risk. You can never really eliminate it, but you can certainly work towards reducing it. And this is where a lot of companies, small businesses, they don't have this assessment, or I see it over and over again. Large businesses, enterprise corporations are ignoring the Apple platform. Maybe they think it's still going away. It's not going away. They have to pay attention to it. They have to give it the same attention that they have been giving the Windows side of operations for years. And we can help with that for sure. So security assessment, that's something you need to focus on. Spam email, this is something I feel like we should all probably have under control by now. If you're hosting with us, and we host our clients typically at either Rackspace or Office 365, we've got some Google accounts. Those spam filters, especially at Rackspace, are really good. Office 365, adequate. Google, I personally don't use it, so I don't know how good their spam filter is, but they do have a spam filter. And I know we've all been frustrated by spam filters over the years because it's a cat and mouse game of the spammers trying to get to us, and the spam filters trying to block them. But you got to have a spam filter, and I hope you all do. And if you don't understand how your spam filter works, both at the server level or the desktop level, let us know. Passwords. I'm going to talk about passwords, and then we're going to move on to one last topic. But passwords is really an area that I just continually see a lot of lack of knowledge around how to protect ourselves using good passwords. The good news is a lot of people are trying to work on getting rid of passwords. The bad news is it's not going to happen anytime soon. So I'm going to actually skip ahead a minute and talk about passwords, because this is where people are getting attacked. In fact, a 2017 report from Verizon, as you can see here, said that insecure passwords cause an estimated 80% of breaches. And I would say, in our experience, seeing organizations get hacked, it often and always comes down to a password. It's a password that is either too simple, so simple it can be guessed, or it's a password that has been used over and over again at multiple accounts, and one of those accounts has been breached. Good example is Yahoo, I think, was in the news several times last year for breaches. And basically, if you had a Yahoo account, your password was out there and available to hackers. And if you use that same passcode that you used at Yahoo, if you used it anywhere else, including your email, then you are susceptible to being hacked. So you don't want to use the same password. There's an article, and here's a shortcut. And this is an article that Chad Cleese shared with me. The NIST new password rules, what you need to know. And this is a good read. We're not going to go all the way through this. I highlighted just a few items that I want to talk about here. And the first one is, as the article says, size does matter. And they've raised the minimum password, which a lot of us have on our phones. I think a lot of us, not me, I have a much longer password on my phone, but because I live this stuff, and I've been frightened enough to increase the length of my password. But a 4-character password is really not enough today. If you have a 4-digit password on your phone or your computer, or I hope not your email, that can be hacked relatively easily. So 8 is the minimum. 8 is the minimum characters that you need, and you can take that all the way up to 64 characters. That's what I do. I'm going to show you in a minute what I do with my passcodes, which are all, in most cases, 64 characters, unless the passcode is not allowed to be that long. Unfortunately, there are many cases, even today, when passcodes cannot be as long as 64 characters. So then I have to shorten it. No hints, absolutely 0 hints. This may sound like a tough one for those people who rely on hints to remember their passcodes, but I'm going to show you a tip on how to avoid having hints. And then the third one, which is really fantastic, no expirations on your passcodes. So if anyone out there is still experiencing a situation where they are required to change their password, every month, every quarter, every year, whatever the case may be. Share this article with your IT department or your top level people, whoever's in charge of setting these rules, so that those rules can get changed. They need to hear feedback on this. And studies have shown that people who have to change their passcodes often tend to resort to insecure methods of storing them and changing them. So that's great news. Now that also means you have to have a good password to start out with. So how do we do that? And I'm going to open up one passcode, which actually is the next slide. Forget your passwords. So I honestly don't know many of my own passwords. I know the password to get into my computer. I have to know that one. Although I use a fingerprint scanner most of the time. Anytime I restart, I would have to type in my passcode. And in this case, I use my fingerprint scanner to unlock one password, and I just did that with my finger. But there are situations where I have to remember the one password. It is the one password I have to remember. And to be honest with you, I often don't remember it. I have it securely stored on my Apple Watch if I ever need to remember it, and I have one other secure location as a failover. But I've made it difficult to type and remember, and that goes a little bit further than what I might recommend you doing, especially if you're new to one password. But one password, as you set it up, will walk you through how to create a secure password for this database. And this database is really all my passcodes. And as you can see, they're hidden, and I have access to them, and I can search them. And to be honest with you, I don't really live in the application too much. I live mostly in the web browser. Let's see, if I were to go to Rackspace, this is a great example. I'm going to autofill, and then it's asking me for my one-time passcode. And the nice thing is it copies it to the clipboard, so I can just paste it and verify to get in. But that's happening because of this expiring and ever-changing passcode right here. So that's an advanced feature, but that's something that you definitely want to take advantage of. So let's go back to our website, because we do have some videos under services, learning labs, that we did a couple years ago. And under security and privacy series, we've got security awareness, we've got intro to passwords, master passwords. All of these are less than 15 minutes, well, maybe less than 20. And security for teams. And we go into depth on one password. But if I needed to create a new password, I would go into my password generator. And here's one that I most recently created, which had to be 16 characters. That was the max that website would accept. Or I can slide it all the way to 64. And I get a randomly generated passcode that gets saved to my one password on the Mac, my one password on my iOS devices. And no matter where I am, I have access to my passwords, but I don't even know what they are. And I guarantee you, nobody in my lifetime is going to be able to hack in to a 64-character passcode. What if I forget my passcode? Simple enough, I can reset it. I own the account. It's linked to my email. I can reset it. The problem is, if someone hacks into your email, most likely they can also reset your passcodes. That's why it's important not to let someone into your email. So it's important to secure that. It's important to use two-factor authentication whenever possible. And that brings me to another aspect of passwords, which, going back to our 12 ways to protect yourself, I'm going to talk about one more item today, and that's security awareness. This is a big topic of discussion. If you haven't heard the term, become familiar with it. You need to build a security awareness program at your business. And part of the security assessment that Chad and I work on together is rolling out, once we figure out what your security risks are, building that awareness with your team. And there are tools that you can use to educate your team. We can help you with that. But it really comes down to communication. And talking about this often and reminding your team that they have to be diligent and aware of what they click, of what information they hand off to people or websites or unknown websites, because this is where the hacks are coming in. You can have excellent passwords, excellent spam, you can have a security assessment, but if someone gives away their passcode because they're not aware of what they're doing, uh, that's a big problem. And even though we're all adults, we're all smart, we all know in the real world how to protect ourselves, sometimes we get busy and it can be dangerous to become complacent and to quickly click a link that maybe looks valid but isn't, and then handing those credentials over to somebody and then realizing it when we're too late. The good news is if you're using passwords the way I'm using them, even if you turn over a passcode to somebody, the chances of them getting into anything beyond that one account is absolutely probably zero. They're only going to get into the one account, as opposed to if you're using the same passcode everywhere, they're going to get into all your accounts. And then having two-factor, even if I accidentally handed over my Rackspace email passcode, they wouldn't have that second factor that's being generated just for me in order to get in. And in fact, sometimes I will see attempts on my accounts that I own, or somebody is attempting to get in, but they can't because they don't have that two-factor. So all good stuff. Don't get overwhelmed by it. Just know that if you're not doing this stuff, reach out to us so we can help you. Okay, so we're going to wrap this up here. One more point about that. We talked about this with documentation. There's automation that can happen, and that's where IT can really help you automate some things. But at the end of the day, the weakest link is that manual process of people actually using these tools. And when you start using one passcode, or one password rather, or anything else, there's LastPass, there's some others that you might be using, it can be frustrating because these things maybe don't work as intuitively as you would like them to work, or maybe the autofill works with some websites but doesn't work with other websites, and that's just a coding issue. It's getting better, but it's not perfect. And I heard someone recently say, well, that solution is not perfect, so it's not for me. Solutions to passwords are, I don't think, ever going to be perfect, but you have to do it. It's an inconvenience, like locking your front door. Going in and out of the unlocked door is much easier than going in and out of a door with a deadbolt and a few other locks on it. But you've got to do it to protect yourself. So forget your passwords. Next month, March 16th, we're going to talk about workflow. And workflow is something that people often don't think about, but we're going to talk about why it's important and how it can really elevate your business. So let's see, Friday, March 16th, as it says here, 12:30 p.m., we'll be talking about workflow. I want to remind everyone that any of these topics that we talk about, if you're a customer of Forget Computers or even Robot Cloud, and you have questions, reach out to us. Or maybe if you want training specific to your organization, whether it's a webinar or on-site, reach out to us. We can help with that. And upcoming, I wanted to mention, this is far out, but this summer, so MacTech Pro Chicago this July is going to be downtown. I'm a session chair. I've been a session chair on and off over the years with Neil Tickton, and we're going to have a lot of Apple professionals here in town sharing their ideas and talking about best ways and best practices to manage Apple devices. So if you're interested in that or have any questions about that or interested in speaking or attending, reach out to me, let me know. And lastly, I want to mention we have a HomePod in the office. And if you haven't heard about the HomePod, then I'm not sure where you've been hiding recently. But we have a HomePod, and it is fantastic. I love it. If you have any questions about that, ask any of our team members. They've experienced it. And I appreciate you tuning in. We'll see you next month. Thanks. Bye.